When I went to volunteer at FOSATU, I arrived at the office with Jayendra Naidu because we had both made the decision that we would like to experiment with something different. And we had been reading a lot of Marxist literature about the role of the working class. And in fact, we had now graduated from black consciousness. Because black consciousness could not, at the end of the day, answer the fundamental questions that we had. What is apartheid? And it wasn't just about racial discrimination. Racial discrimination was the form it took. The real core of apartheid was a cheap labor system. And so that was the issue we had to answer. And so we reached a point where we were confident young black activists. And we wanted to go to the next stage. We wanted to ask the question, well, how do we understand apartheid, and what do we want to replace apartheid with? And what are the fundamental principles on which we want to construct a new South Africa? And it had to be about non-racialism. It had to be about the class divisions in our society, about the exploitative relationship between the bosses and the workers, the challenge of a homelands that were labor reservoirs where they dump people that they did not need. And so understanding all of that meant that you really had to go beyond black consciousness. And so yes, we were attracted to the idea that we are beginning to, in working with the trade unions, beginning to interface with the working class. But we knew that FOSATU was very hostile to political activism of the past, because an open association with politics would smash a very embryonic trade union movement. And that's the lesson we had learned from the past. And the union movement that had emerged, that took the form of FOSATU or any of the other unions, really had its origins in the wages commissions and in the role that Marxist white intellectuals played, influenced very much by the thinking of Rick Turner, Professor Rick Turner. And so the roots of the modern trade union movement had that as one of its inputs that really came much through FOSATU. And when I interfaced with that, I understood that. And so I pretended to be completely non-political. I had no association with the community struggles or student struggles. I was there as a volunteer. I had to go through an interview process, you know. I was then asked to go and meet Johnny Copeland, I had to meet Alec Irwin, I had to be approved. So I got it. But once I was inside, I was a volunteer, unpaid volunteer. I had to go and organize a factory, Beacon Sweets. And I remember having to be there from 4 in the morning till 10 at night, day after day after day. And then you would have, from the place where the workers got off the bus to the factory gate, which is about 200 meters, to develop the storyline as to how you want to now get workers to join the union. It was tough. And then the company started to victimize workers. They started to photograph workers. They almost ran me down with a car, the chief executive of the business. And then workers were terrified. Didn't want to accept any pamphlets. Said, you know what? You're going to get me into jail. You're going to get me dismissed. So you had to deal with that. And so eventually we used the community organizing tactics. As soon as I could identify someone who was more amenable to talking, I'd say, okay, can I meet you at home? So I'd go into the communities and organize them. But we got smashed because the company started to dismiss key people. And I learned an important lesson in my life. It takes an incredibly long time to build an organization. It can take just one act of rashness to destroy an organization overnight. I met with Prof. Seneke. Was a remarkable young man. And he was working in a textile factory called South African Fabrics. So we got to be friends, and really good friends, you know. So yeah, I was chatting to him, and he said to me, "Abe, why don't you come and work in the factory?" And I said, "Wow, fantastic. I'd love to work in a factory. I mean, yeah, I'm organizing workers. I've never worked in a factory." So he made a plan, and I got a job. And I remember the first day of my formal work on a factory floor. I'd worked in shops before and whatever else as an odd person here and there. But this, on the factory floor, this was my first experience. And it was amazing. I remember arriving there. It was 12-hour shifts from 6 to 6. I was doing the night shift. So during the day, I was still involved in a bit of other work, and I really thought, well, I don't need to sleep. I can get there at 6, and 12-hour shift should be okay. So I arrive at the factory. I get taken to my station. It's a textile factory. The factory is really segregated. You have departments just of Indian workers and departments just of African workers. They have separate change rooms. Everything is like, racialized within the factory floor. So I get put to work with this operator. There's a row of machines where each machine has hundreds of needles. And as the cloth is coming out, my job is if a needle breaks, I got to stop the machine so the needle can be replaced. And the guy who's the operator says to me, "Hey, Sonny, you better pay attention here. Because if you don't, I'm going to kick you out through that front door." I say, "Yes, sir. Really, I'm really wanting to work. I'll be a very good worker." So I am working now. So my role is to walk up and down these machines and stop it if I see a thread is now missing. Which is fine. It's an easy job to do, you know. So I'm walking up and down. Shit, man. It's getting to 12 o'clock. I am now sleepwalking. I am so tired. So I'm getting into trouble because some needles are breaking and I'm not catching it. So we have a half an hour break, 12 o'clock. I sleep. They have to shake me up to get me up in the morning. So I get up and then I carry on doing it. So I'm in a lot of trouble by the morning because I've buggered up some important material, you know. So anyway, I get back home and I fall asleep. They have to shake me at time to get up. I didn't even get up to eat. And I think, oh my God, am I going to go back to this? And I don't know, something inside me said, yes, get your butt out of here and get to this factory. And I did that. And I worked there for a few months. And eventually, I worked with this colleague of mine, Prof. Seneke, and Andrew Joyce, who was another key activist in the factory. And we organized this factory.